Welcome to the Ground and Pone Podcast, a weekly show for fans of combat sports, gaming, entertainment, and plenty more. I'm Brian Shea, online content director at Game Informer, joined as always by Scott Fontana, the New York Post's MMA reporter. The final UFC card of 2022 is behind us, and we've got some gaming topics ahead of our end of the year episode next week. But Scott, before we kick that off, I need to know about your weekend because I had a jam-packed weekend, and there was actually a jam-packed weekend for sports. So what did you get into this weekend?
It was kind of a jam-packed weekend for a lot of reasons, sports obviously being one of them and fight being especially, with the UFC. But I didn't even get to watch as much football as I would have liked to on Sunday because I had we went to Home Depot, had to pick up some stuff. We're doing renovations of my kids' bedroom and playroom. So we just needed a couple of things there. And, it was a busy weekend on the whole. But yeah, it was a nice time. We finally put up our outdoor Christmas decorations because we were very delayed on that. I got sick, as we know, and that kind of set everything back. So at least the outside looks a little more festive now. We had the tree up. We got the tree. It's very nice, and the kids are having a fun time with it. But yeah, what about you?
Well, I took Friday off and went on a full-on date day with my girlfriend. I even had a doctor's appointment scheduled for the afternoon of Friday, and we were about 3 hours from when I would have to leave our date day to go to this doctor's appointment. And I was just like, I'm going to cancel that doctor's appointment. So I rescheduled it for early January, and I'll be able to go then because I was just like, yeah, we're having a nice day. It would suck to kind of break it up and have to drive across the other side of the city and then resume our day together later on. So that's ultimately what we ended up doing. But, we went to a couple of nice restaurants and then just had a really great day. And then Saturday I woke up and my girlfriend goes, "Hey, I was thinking we should go to the Vikings game today." And I was like, "Are you sure you don't are you confused? Because we took yesterday off. So maybe she thinks today's Sunday." And I was like, "Oh, no, they usually play on Sundays. Are you thinking Gophers? Because that's the Minnesota Golden Gophers."
So you mansplained her is what you did, didn't you?
I was just very confused because I had no idea there were any NFL games on this Saturday. Apparently, it was a big NFL Saturday because there were 3 games that happened on Saturday. It was
they're trying to do that a little more than they used to at this time of year. I think they're trying to make it sort of a thing.
I made the commitment earlier on in this year where I was like, I'm going to follow NFL more this year. And that just completely fell off, man. I have followed sports so infrequently this year, and it sucks because it's just I guess it comes with having a new relationship with lots of new social obligations and everything. But well,
you're also bitter at the Sunday ticket plan and everything like that too. So I can understand how that would sour you very quickly anyway.
Yeah, it's so hard because I'm already I'm looking at my Paramount Plus subscription because that's the only reason I resubscribed is so I could watch the CBS games. And looking all right, what do I need to watch on this thing before it's all right, Quiet Place 2. All right, I want to see that horror movie Smile. I want to see a couple other things on Paramount Plus before I just axe that thing because we're coming up on the end of the NFL season. I'm sure we're going to want to watch some playoffs and everything. And yes, I know what you're going to say, Bellator. However,
that is not what I was going to say. What I'm going to say, I think is even more important for you to understand is that there is the early aughts Ninja Turtles series
that
is on Paramount Plus, and I highly recommend checking that out.
All the Nickelodeon stuff is on there, which is the hardest thing for me to lose, to be honest. I could go on there and watch Double Dare episodes, and that's incredible.
I've showed my kids Double Dare, and I'm like, yeah, so this is what a VCR does.
Well, it's good that you're introducing it as a VCR, not a VHS player, which I've heard a lot of people refer to.
I think we were talking about that recently, weren't we? Yeah.
So anyway, the Vikings game was what my girlfriend had suggested for us to do on Saturday, and I was like, yeah, sure. Once I realized they were playing, I was like, yeah, we'll do that. And then we just kind of dropped the subject and didn't revisit it.
Moved on.
We just moved on with our day, and I cooked some breakfast, and then I was like, oh yeah, the Vikings game is happening right now. Let me check what the score is. I asked Siri what the score is. Siri even said the Vikings are being demolished by the Colts.
Nice.
It was just before halftime, 30-0. And I looked at her and I go, oh man, it's a good thing we didn't go to that game. And then she's like, yeah, that would have been really sad. We dodged a bullet not going to that game. And then later on, I was like, oh, let me check on what the score is. Maybe they came back a little bit. Maybe they made it a little bit more competitive. And it was tied. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then, like, I was like, damn, we should have gone. Like, it was a complete 180 of like, oh, I'm glad we didn't go to that game too. Damn, we really should have gone to that game.
It was literally the biggest comeback in the history of the National Football League.
Yes. And
no one's ever come back from 33-0 down to win a game. And it's wild because the Vikings, they won it in overtime with a basically a last second field goal. Otherwise it would have been a draw. Or a tie, which is always a draw is more like fight sport. Tie is football, yeah. And now I'm leading into the fight sport more, right? But yeah, it was like they hit this last second field goal to make it a win instead of a tie, which I think, given the circumstances, they should have been very satisfied with a tie. But when you look at it, they really only played football for like 23 out of 70 minutes. They had this like massive comeback at the end of regulation over the last like quarter and a half. And then they didn't score in overtime until, again, that last second out of 10 minutes, and they didn't score any points for the first 2.5 quarters. So yeah, it's weird. They somehow managed to win a game by playing only a quarter and a half of it.
I think it was ESPN one of the major sports reporting organizations that put out that Matt Ryan, who is the quarterback of the Colts, is now the losing quarterback in both the largest comeback in NFL history and the largest comeback in Super Bowl history.
Yeah. Everyone picked up on that one too. Yeah, that's look, I'm sure Matt Ryan is a perfectly decent human being. I have no issues against him specifically, but as a Carolina Panthers fan, and he was a longtime Falcon who, had some games against us we didn't enjoy, especially when he had Julio Jones there.
Oh yeah.
I don't feel that bad.
I'm just sure, like you said, you're sure he's a perfectly decent human being, but is he? Like, maybe this is karma. Maybe he has some stuff we don't know about.
For all I know, he is the worst of the worst former Falcons quarterbacks. Maybe he was doing something even worse to dogs.
I mean, I don't know if we can. I don't know if we want to put Matt Ryan above Michael Vick as. Oh boy, yeah, that's a rough one.
We just don't know, is what we're saying.
We don't know. We don't know what skeletons.
What if he has just all sorts of dogs and cats and humans and just a bunch of dead bodies in a locker somewhere? We don't know. We don't know.
Poor Matt Ryan.
But I'll bet you if it is a locker, it's probably a frozen locker because he's Matty Ice.
Okay. Well, World Cup also happened this week.
It's got pretty morbid, didn't it? Yeah.
You don't care about soccer, but
I don't care about soccer. That is very true.
This was another big comeback. So, there's not a lot of scoring that happens in soccer, most soccer matches. And this is the final of the World Cup. And it took place Sunday morning, and it was Argentina versus France. Argentina gets up 2-0, and it just seems like they're going to be coasting to this 2-0 win. Then we get this foul against France. So France sends Kylian Mbappe, who is this 23-year-old phenom. He led the team to the World Cup last year, I believe, and then
the last time,
4 years ago,
when he was only 19, I guess,
19 years old.
He was also the FIFA cover boy the previous year,
and he, I believe, was the only teenager to ever score a goal in the World Cup final. It's a real Raul Rosas Jr. situation going on over there. But he
even more so because he's actually reached kind of the pinnacle of the sport pretty quick.
It's so wild, and it's
more like John Jones.
So he's incredible, and so they send him up to kick the penalty kick. He scores the goal. All right, so it's 2-1. You're still like, all right, well, it's a penalty kick, so they haven't done anything else since then. Less than 2 minutes later, one of the most unbelievable shots you'll see in the World Cup, Mbappe scores again, so to make it 2-0. In the span of, or 2-2 in the span of 2 minutes. It was just an incredible, oh my God, they're going to do this. And, Argentina has kind of been one of those long suffering teams. It's always at the top, but they never really get to it. I think it's been 36 years since they've won the World Cup.
And they've got, of course, an all-time great in Leo Messi.
Yeah.
So I don't like soccer. I'm aware of these things.
Yeah. Lionel Messi has, he's always kind of come just shy of winning the World Cup. And they were like, oh my God, are they going to blow it? And Messi's not going to, because this was kind of the consensus final World Cup for Lionel Messi. And Messi scored again in extra time, the second overtime period, basically. He scored again. So basically they play 2:45, what is it? I don't know, is it 2:45?
They play 2 45-minute halves, and then I think they play 2 15-minute overtime, extra time periods. Or
and then they go to penalty
I always forget
kicks.
the terms because, again, I don't like soccer.
Yeah, then they go to penalty kicks if they still haven't beaten it or still haven't decided who it is. So Messi scores again in the third overtime period, right? Or the second overtime period to make it 3-2. And I'm like, all right, well, that's going to be it because they've been stalemated for the rest of the time. And then Mbappe scores again to get the hat trick. And then they go to the penalty kicks. And of course, both Messi and Mbappe score in their penalty kicks. So Messi gets, if you count the penalty kicks, 3 goals. Mbappe ends with 4 goals. And then Argentina ends up winning it. And like, it was just a whirlwind of a game. And like, I don't care if you like don't like soccer. This game was just, it was very, very, it was edge of your seat through most of it, and then thrilling in the moments where they scored.
I would bet that if I had sat down and I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to sit down and watch this game and I'm going to try and appreciate it, I probably could have watched this game and been like, yeah, that was pretty good. Like that was actually really entertaining because the way you described it, the way it sounded from when I read about it and everything like that, it sounded that way. But also, it's hard for me to care, and I also really needed to sleep that morning, so I missed most of this. I woke up past noon because I worked very late. I had a lot of work this weekend. It was just kind of late nights and things, so I missed out on a bunch of things. That was another thing too. Like I missed out on some time, so like I had to catch up and go to Home Depot and crap, right? So I didn't get to watch much of it. But yeah, I mean, look, as someone who doesn't have a dog in the race and also doesn't really care that much, I will say, it sounds like Lionel Messi is a pretty likable character in the sport. It doesn't sound like he's like a terrible human being or anything like that. Yeah.
I don't know.
And also, I know he's got Italian roots too. And every time I see Italian roots, I'm like, hey, I have Italian roots, so like I can get behind him a little bit.
Yeah, well, Argentina kind of like veers closer to Italy than it does Spain in terms of like kind of like the roots from what I understand. Yeah,
well, there was a lot of the Italian diaspora. They went to obviously United States, especially the part of the country where I'm from, where my ancestors settled here in Jersey. But yeah, also Brazil and Argentina. Those were like 2 of the big places that they went in addition to the United States.
Mm-hmm. So they obviously a huge sporting event that happened over the weekend with the World Cup.
Did you fire up FIFA after that? Did you get all fired up?
I did kind of want to play. There's a game I've been playing called Retro Goal, and it's on Switch. It's a $5 game, and it's all about it's like a soccer management game, but like you end up playing like NES style soccer matches while you're doing it. It's a lot of fun, and it's only
sounds kind of cool.
It's only $5 on Switch. There's also a football version of it too, where it's like American
like NFL football.
There's Retro Bowl, which is like a Tecmo Bowl style game, and then there's Retro Goal, but they all have management stuff. And it's only they're each only $5.
Retro Bowl on there, and I didn't know that there was like a management component to that. That's
cool. Yeah, I didn't know
I
either.
Will check that out.
I legitimately thought it was just like single games, and then it's like create your manager, and I'm like, what? Like that's like the first thing it has you do, and then I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to create my manager and like do this. I don't know what this is going to have me do. And it's like, here's your roster. And like, the thing I like about Retro Bowl is you can actually like edit the player names of your team. So it's like, I chose like, all right, I like Baltimore as like my favorite team because it doesn't have like the real teams on there, obviously, because Madden has the exclusivity. However, it has all of like the cities are represented. And then those cities have the colors of so if you choose Baltimore, it's going to have black, yellow, and purple. And if you choose New York J, it's going to have green, white, and then like New York G is in there. So sure. Like yeah, there's all kinds of different cities that are obviously like the analogs for
as was in vogue about 35 years ago.
Yeah. So, but you can go in there and change all the team names. You can change the players on your team. I wish there was a way to edit like the full roster. Because if you could edit the full roster, that would make it so much more fun for me. But you only play offense. It simulates the defense, which is kind of how I play Madden these days anyway.
I actually like playing defense.
Well, you won't play defense in Retro Bowl. So don't.
Well, then I'm mad. I don't want to play this game ever.
Well, I guess you got to play Madden NFL 22 then, or 23, whatever we're on. And
you think that, but I also don't have to play that either.
But anyway, that was the game I actually was itching to play, was Retro Goal. But also the thing about Retro Goal is you don't play defense on that either, which is very strange because that that's not like you're changing players or changing sides of the ball. You're just running the opposite direction, basically.
That is very strange. Yeah.
So
why do they hate defense? Why does this developer hate defense?
That's the one thing. Well, it started out as a mobile game, and I'm wondering if they thought maybe it would be like difficult but it plays really well on a controller.
Okay.
But yeah, there's a whole like
more sense.
management thing where like, there's transactions, you're managing like your players' egos, you're drafting players, you're signing players off free agency. Like, it's pretty fun from what I've played. I mean, I definitely got my $5 worth in the first session alone that I played.
I'm going to add that to my my kind of wish list, my like keep an eye on this for deals list for PlayStation if it's on there, right? Retro Bowl?
It's only on Switch, I believe.
Ah, too bad.
You have a Switch?
I do. That's true. I can do the same.
But anyway, the World Cup, obviously a massive event. The entire world's tweeting about it at this point.
Not me.
And Twitter decides they're going to do the old PR thing and try to bury a bad piece of news. Did you see that?
Yeah.
They said, hey, you know what? We know there are competing social media platforms. You're not allowed to link to any of them anymore. So it's like Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon. I think Hive was in there. All these different social media platforms. And Twitter is basically trying to shadow ban / completely ban them. And I don't know about you, Scott, but for me, that was the final straw.
It's not the final straw for me, but I don't really, I mean, let's put it this way. I don't really love Twitter to begin with. I don't really love the social media component of being a modern journalist. It's just something I do because I kind of have to. And I will say I enjoy elements of it. Like it's on fight nights. It's kind of fun being in the conversation and like that. I really do enjoy that component of it. But like the rest of it is just like it takes me away from the billion other things that I would like to and should be doing with my life. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, so I'm still not at like I guess quote unquote a breaking point. I'm pretty much just in like the mode of preparing for when this thing collapses.
What happened with me was like, all right, I don't like the way Elon has been running it ever since he took over.
Elon who? I'm not familiar with that person.
Yeah, I wish I was with you in that. I wish I didn't know who the hell this stupid idiot it was. But the thing that I like about what the co-main event, we referenced them a few times here, but like they pointed out that the best thing that Twitter has done was shatter the illusion that just because you're a rich, successful business person doesn't mean you're smart.
Yeah.
and I think no use case has been more apt than Elon Musk here, because he has shown he cannot stop tripping over his dick is basically the best way I can put it at this point.
I mean, that would almost be impressive though. That's almost complimentary.
He's fine. He can't stop stepping on rakes. And
there you go.
One of his I don't know what that was, but
that's the sideshow Bob.
Oh, okay.
Every time he steps on a rake, he goes, "No."
So one of I don't know. It was the fact that I don't like the way he's been running it. It was the fact that he earlier last week banned a bunch of journalists.
That made me very angry.
And then this was the final straw of them banning other social media platforms. So as a result, and I put it out there, I was like, hey, I'm on Hive, I'm on Instagram, find me there. I'm going to leave this up for a few hours, and then I'm going to at least temporarily deactivate my Twitter. I might be back. You know what, if they can, and I noticed that later on in the day on Sunday, Elon did post a poll saying, should I step down from being the head of Twitter? And he said,
would you like the results of this poll?
I saw the results.
Okay.
He said he's going to abide by it, but who knows? I think he's going to probably find some stupid loophole, or this was his way out all along, was to make a bunch of bad decisions, because he tried to walk back his purchase.
Oh yes, he did.
So I think maybe this was his attempt to kind of be like, oh, maybe I should step down because I'm going to make all these bad decisions, and then find some way to get out of it and appoint somebody else. And now it's their problem.
I mean, I have no idea about like that element of it. And the thing I'm going to say also is kind of like take it for what it's worth. But I did read, I could swear it was a semi-reputable person, but I couldn't even shout that. So just take this with a grain of salt. But what I had understood is that possibly some of the other investors were like, listen, you got to back out of this. You got to get out of this thing. And so he's like, maybe I'll put up a poll. And then if they vote me out, then it's like, oh, then it makes sense. I can just abide by what the people say. And if they don't, I'll be like, hey, well, maybe I'm going to stay, or maybe, figure something out later. But yeah, the results of this poll, with 17.5 million votes cast, and who knows how many of those are bots. Let's be realistic here, to be fair. Although the bots are probably leaning on the no side. Yeah. Should he step down? No. The yeses won pretty handily, 57.5%. That's like at least a 2 million vote margin.
Yeah,
of victory.
It's a pretty substantial win. And you know what? If he
also hasn't tweeted since the poll ended, by the way. Just putting it out there.
I saw a thing that was very funny to me, and it was like kind of like a spectrum, so like a square, right? One says on one axis, the up and down axis says wants to be funny, and then yes and no, and then is funny is the other one. And on one side, it was like fully wants to be funny, and also fully isn't funny, Elon Musk. And then on the other one, fully doesn't want to be funny, and fully is funny, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He desperately wants to be taken seriously, but everybody just thinks he's funny. But anyway, so with that, like that, if Elon did end up stepping away, that would be step one for me coming back. However, and I'm under no illusion that like, oh wow, everybody wants me back. No, but like this is like my personal thoughts on like what it would take for me to come back to Twitter. Step one would be him leaving. Step two would be starting to roll back some of the things that I didn't like, whether it be the suspensions of the journalists, whether it be the banning of other social media platforms. And then, step three is somebody who seems to not be malicious with every action and tweet that they send out to kind of take control. Those are like
where do you feel like you're going to be putting most of your time? Because like, not that you necessarily want to live on social media either, because I certainly don't. Yeah. And I imagine you'd prefer not to be on there all the time, but it's, like we said, it's kind of the nature of the beast of working as a modern journalist, especially in some of our fields where there's engagement is a big thing. Where do you expect you're going to be trying to put maybe more of your focus starting like right away?
Just purely as far as social media.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I'm still kind of maintaining the same footprint on Instagram that I've always had. Like I'm not like going too high up on that. It's not, I'm like, oh wow, I used to devote like 4 hours a day to Twitter. I'm going to devote an extra 4 hours to Instagram. It's like, no, I'm just not on Twitter. And then I'm maybe doing like a couple posts a day over on Hive.
Okay.
But like Instagram, I'm just, I guess, maybe spending slightly more time on. And then Hive, I'm actually going to post on. But like that app is still so like broken. They were down for 2 whole weeks.
Yeah, I saw that. And I heard that there were some issues with like logins and credentials and things like that. And that's why I was like, because I was thinking about joining. I was even thinking about asking you like, hey, what's this thing? What's going on? And then I heard about that and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to steer clear.
So the thing that happened with Hive was like, well, it's only like 3 people, I think, that work on the site, right? And it's like...
That sounds like a tough thing to do with a lot of people.
Well, now all of a sudden, now that it's like this avalanche of people joining. But like the problem a few weeks ago was like they discovered that like, one, you could edit other people's posts.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
And then 2, DMs were actually not DMs. So it was a problem. So they took the servers down for like 2 weeks.
Sounds like a massive problem. Yeah.
They fixed those security flaws, but now it's back in like kind of like a 80% working state where it's like, I think they realized like, all right, we got to bring this thing back or people are just going to completely move on without us. And
it's a volatile time. Yeah.
And we need to have people join. But like I go to somebody's page, I can't see who they follow. I can't see who follows them. It just says like this page cannot be loaded or something like that. And then like if like on your notifications tab, it says like so-and-so liked your thing. Like, on Instagram, if somebody likes a picture, it shows like their picture and it shows like their username, right?
Yeah.
This one, like if somebody likes a post, it says their name, but it has like maybe like a 85% chance that it's just going to be like the default, like this person has no profile picture, like the outline of their head. And then you click into their profile and they actually do have a profile picture set. So it's like there's some things, and they don't have a desktop version. So like if you have to be on the app on your phone, you can't go to like hivesocial.com or whatever their website is to go on it like you can on Twitter or Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
There's no web version basically. And there's nothing that I'm really like oh wow, this is the new Twitter. Like I know there's the one by the former Twitter founders, right, or Twitter creators. Is that Post or is that something else?
I don't know who's involved with everything. I haven't gotten deep in the weeds of that, but I will say I did just join Post.
Okay. I am looking at.
By the way, if you want to find me on there, I'm just at Scott Fontana. No middle initial.
Oh, you messed up. You're not
no underscore.
No
nothing,
underscore. I was like, we've never had your.
That's why my middle initials for my email. I don't need to give that out.
You've got to have the uniformity. Like there was no Brian Shea on Hive, but I did Brian P. Shea just to keep the uniformity.
Nope. Because I still harbor dreams of the dude who has been parked on Scott Fontana on Twitter for literally hasn't tweeted in 10 years. Still harbor dreams that this guy's just going to get booted and I'm going to take that handle.
He's already dead, Scott.
Look, I don't root for more of me to die. It's not like the one where I'm trying to get all the Scott Fontanas out of there. So I've become the most powerful. You remember that movie, the Jet Li movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not trying to do that.
The one,
but I feel like if I did it, I would feel it.
Are you talking about the one?
Yeah, the one.
Or are you talking about Cradle to the Grave with DMX?
No. Cradle to the Grave is a different movie.
Yes, it's a very different movie. I was just joking.
I was just watching the DMX documentary, by the way, on HBO Max last night.
I did not know such a thing existed. But
they chronicled not the last year of his life, but his 2019, which was the year he was trying to mount a comeback, and he'd gotten out of prison and everything like that. And it's it's just kind of like an interesting slice of his life in one of his final years.
We, the Last of Us series is coming back or debuting in January, I believe.
Right.
And that's my circled calendar spot for when I'm going to reactivate my HBO Max or whatever it's going to be. It's just going to be called Max now, right?
They are changing it to Max. I don't know when. I'm gonna call it Max Holloway.
I'm not. I'm going to call it Max.
Well, that's wrong.
But every time you start it up, it plays Hawaiian Kickboxer.
Okay.
All right. Well, Scott, what are you playing?
What am I playing?
We've danced around it a little bit too much with this intro with sports. We talked about
we
social
dove
media
way off of what we normally talk about. Yeah,
but to be fair, there isn't a ton of gaming stuff or MMA stuff. And like I said,
really
at the top of the show, we're going to have kind of like a pre-recorded end of the year episode next week.
Yes.
So that way, the UFC is taking 3 weeks off now, 4 weeks off?
Yeah, it's 4 weeks actually. They're not back until January 14th. I'm looking at my calendar right now.
There's the Bellator Ryzen event happening in between Christmas and New Year's, or is that New Year's Eve?
It's New Year's Eve. That's what they do in Japan. They do the big New Year's events. That went back to Pride Days and all that stuff. I was actually just speaking last night to Kyoji Horiguchi, former UFC veteran and former Bellator champion, current Ryzen champion, who actually still fights for Bellator, not Ryzen. So he is fighting as a Bellator athlete in this event that is Bellator versus Ryzen. But he said it's basically like a big Japanese festival is the way he described it to me.
I wish I was there for that. That would be so much fun.
It seems like it'd be a super cool event.
Saitama Super Arena?
Yeah, I'm almost positive it's Saitama.
God, that would be. I've always wanted to go to a fight, and I'm bummed because when I was in Japan in October, I remember somebody told me the next morning that they were watching Ryzen, and I was like, "Damn it, I missed watching Ryzen while I'm in Japan." That would have been amazing.
That would have been fun. Yeah. Have you seen the posters, by the way, for this event, or the poster? I guess
I've seen one of them. I don't know if it's the one you were talking about. It was incredible.
The poster with
with the
there's the samurai, and then there's the one that's like the gladiator. And obviously representing both, Ryzen would be the samurai and the gladiator would be because of the indelible image they've been using as their logo in different forms. Bellator, the gladiator. Yeah. I think it looks fantastic. It's super cool.
The UFC could learn a thing or two from some poster designs.
You know what? They know they're actively choosing not to is the thing.
I know. I 100%.
And it really sucks. Because they used to do, I think they even used to do better posters. It's not like they're markedly better now than or worse than they were. I mean, they were still kind of a different type. We weren't tired of it yet. That was part of it. But also, I do think they actually used to be a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so as well. However, that's going to be a topic that we discuss next week. But other than that, it's going to be kind of like end of the year stuff, like our favorite things from 2022, both on the MMA and the gaming side. But we're gonna
we got to get back to that question. What have I been playing? What have you been playing,
Scott?
For me, because we didn't even talk about last week what we've been playing. I actually didn't play much in the last week, but I can tell you what I was doing the week before in that kind of jam-packed week. I finally did complete Bowser's Fury 100%. Found all of the cat shines. My kids had a really fun time watching me. They were like rooting for me. They're like, "You got to avoid Bowser. Watch out." They were like so into me playing, and it was adorable. It was fun. I think if you were in the room, Brian, you would have had a really great time just kind of like being in the atmosphere of it.
I would have been kneeling on the floor with them screaming, "You got to watch out for Bowser."
It really was kind of like that, except they just stay on the couch or sometimes bounce on it, which I always tell them, stop bouncing on the couch.
Well, I would have been bouncing on the couch with them. And then when you told me not to, I would have been like, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my real dad.
Yeah, Brian, you're not allowed to bounce on my couch. You would destroy my couch. They destroy my couch and you would do worse. But anyway, yeah, so I finished that one. That was a lot of fun. I don't even think I forgot about this one. I've been playing a little bit of Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order.
I started that twice and I've fallen off both times.
How did you feel about it?
I think it's fun. Like, I play it primarily to be like, okay, what hero is going to pop up next, or what villain is going to pop up next? Like, I live for like the Easter eggs that they play or they pull in those games. I don't think the gameplay of any of those games really holds up in 2022.
Yeah.
However, I think that Ultimate Alliance 3 is perfectly inoffensive, right? Like, it's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to describe it. Sure.
But I enjoy all the cameos. I enjoy, like, oh, wow, like, this character's popping. All right, now we got to fight Sandman. That's kind of cool. And, like, having, like, all right, well, now this hero's on our team. And, like, being able to assemble the team that you have always dreamt of seeing. Or, like, being like, all right, well, now I have, like, all the OG offenders. I was going to say defenders, but, like, in Avengers, and then it came out offenders. I have all the OG Avengers, and now I can put them on my team. And, like, it's cool to kind of just create, like, theory craft your teams, because some of them play off each other as well.
Yeah, they'll give you different bonuses too, especially if you pair ones that are of different, like, they have, like, the different types. So, like, there's the ones that are Avengers or X-Men or what have you, right?
Yeah. So it's fun in that way, and it's a lot less predatory than the other game that I play that has that kind of thing where it's Marvel Strike Force. But, they both kind of have that same element, which is why I've stuck with Marvel Strike Force for so long. So that's what I love the most about Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. And also, it has kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet story loosely adapted in that, like, it's Thanos and his disciples kind of trying to collect the Infinity Stone. And, like, it's fun in that way because I love the movies and I like the original comics and everything. But, like, gameplay is just it kind of gets monotonous after a while.
It does. I find myself, because I'm thinking to myself sometimes, like, I could sit there, maybe, like, I've got some time, maybe I'll play like a bunch of this game. And then I look at the clock, I'm like 40 minutes have passed. I feel like I'm done. I can't, I don't know. I really liked those games back in the day. I used to play them a ton. And to be fair, I used to play them very often with, like, friends. So, like, friends from college, we would all, like, they would come over, I'd bring it over, we'd do the thing. Right. And now I'm playing it by myself. I'm like, this is, I don't know, it's kind of dry.
It kind of reminds me of the gameplay of the Lego games, like the older Lego games,
sure.
not the Skywalker Saga, but without all the gimmicks and charm of the Lego games. Like the Lego games, you'll be like, all right, I gotta build this thing now, and you gotta find, like, these hidden characters and, like, these hidden, like, Lego pieces and everything. Ultimate Alliance 3 has none of that.
No,
but it has, like, the same kind of, like, baseline, like, brawler style gameplay. The best way that I found to play that game, this is how I made it the furthest before I ultimately tapped out.
Nice pun.
Put it on the easiest mode possible, the easiest difficulty, and just enjoy the story for what it is, which is just, like, all these characters coming together from different disparate parts of the universe and fighting, like, just a massive rogues gallery of characters.
You know what? I might do that too, because I just find myself, especially, like, against the bosses, they're just, like, a bunch of, like, damage sponges, and I'm
takes
like,
forever.
It does. It's so long. I'm like, man, I don't have the patience for this anymore. So I might dip it down to the lowest difficulty as well, and just kind of get through it. It sounds like I'm, like, not enjoying it at all, and I don't want to say that, because if I wasn't, I really wouldn't play it. But also, I'm just, I don't know. I guess I don't know if it's the formula or, here's one thing that bothers me too is I feel like the environments are even less populated than like the previous games were. Cause in those games, you used to like break down. I was obsessed with just breaking down like literally every box and wall that I could because I'm like crazy like that. Yeah. I don't know. I'm very weird.
No, I do the same thing.
All right, good. Then I'm not weird. Or maybe we're both weird. But we're here together. We would have had a lot of fun playing this together.
Hence
so. And maybe we still should. Maybe we should play this together.
We've said so many times, we should play this game together, and we've never played a game together.
I am very open to the idea, sir. Let me know if you want to play something.
I did have my Switch with me in New York when we hung out that one time. We could have played a game.
That's what we should have done.
At that the Irish pub that we went to.
That's true. We could have done that.
We
still can one day. We're going to play. Maybe over this break. Let's pick a night to play. I mean, it could be that. It could be Street Fighter, whatever. Let's find some way to play together.
100%, because I am off all week.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, then we're going to figure it out. I have an extra shift this week, but I also have some vacation time. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but we can figure that off the show. But then the other thing I did was I played a little bit more of the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, which, as you know, I purchased when it was on sale.
Yes.
I'm playing now through A New Hope, which is the only one that both my children have now watched. So I'm playing it specifically in front of them now. And they're having fun. Like they like how it's like cuter and it's a little more fun and silly because my kids don't really like bad guys.
Okay.
They don't really enjoy watching shows or movies that have bad guys. So like my oldest favorite movie is he's two. There's the new Paw Patrol movie that came out like a year ago, which technically is a bad guy, but it's like the least threatening bad guy. And then there's also Wall-E, which I guess sort of the AI is the bad guy, but also it's really just the bad guy is humanity that destroyed the planet.
Yeah, it's a little bit darker than.
But he doesn't look at it the same way as he does. Like there's a bad guy who's I'm doing nefarious things. You know?
There's no Darth Vader, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Although I will say, my oldest has now watched he's actually watched the original trilogy, but he watched A New Hope twice now, and he gets through it a lot better than I would have expected. So I think they're kind of into it.
Well, also like. Darth Vader, whether you like bad guys or not, he's just one of the greatest villains of all time. And I'm really breaking new ground by saying Darth Vader is a cool villain.
Honestly, that's a hot take, sir.
Yeah, good thing I'm off Twitter because I would be too tempted to tweet that hot take that Darth Vader is a good villain. But like,
I'll do it for you.
I feel like it's such a cool like character that even somebody like even a kid who doesn't like. I remember being a kid and loving Darth Vader, and like. I feel like that's a character that like, all right, it's just like a bad guy in like an all black suit with a cool laser sword. It's like, how could you not like that?
You know how some kids like when
James Earl Jones,
when we were young, there were the people who like loved the bad guys. They were like, I love Shredder. I love, Darth Vader. Were you that kid or did you just like him?
I liked some of the bad guys. Like, I kind of always liked the dark version of like the hero. Like, okay. Look at like Venom. Like Venom has a lot of the same abilities that Spider-Man has, and like he's just kind of
for good reason.
Yeah. And then Darth Vader, he's a dark Jedi, which the Jedis in Star Wars were the good guys. So it was like, all right, Luke Skywalker is the good guy. He can use the Force. He has a lightsaber. Darth Vader's just kind of like a dark version of that, and like in my childhood mind, I know there's a lot more complications to it than that. And it was explored in like the prequel trilogy and everything. But then like, Shadow the Hedgehog. I was never like a big Shadow the Hedgehog guy as much as I was like Metal Sonic, but like same concept, right? Like it's a darker version of the hero. And like the Green Ranger, when like in Power Rangers, like, there was the Power Rangers who were like the goody goods. And then Rita got the Green Ranger on her side. And he was like this badass who could call a dragon with his flute. And like, that was so cool to me. And like, so yeah.
And rest in peace, Jason David Frank, by the way.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
That was really sad because like,
not only the Green Ranger, but a former MMA fighter as well. He had a successful little MMA career.
Yeah, and it's sad because I loved him growing up. Like I thought he was incredible in Power Rangers. Like
he was everybody's like people who liked Power Rangers. He was always pretty much everyone's favorite. I hate the Power Rangers, but when I did watch it because everybody else did, and I wanted to keep up, like I thought he was cool too. Yeah, like also green was my favorite color, still is. So I was kind of going to gravitate to that anyway.
So were you bummed when he became the White Ranger?
No, I thought it was fine actually too. But yeah, I mean, green.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not like him? He summoned dragons. Like the Power Rangers we got like these tiny little like robots that we can call Zords, and they form one giant like Megazord, and it's like, yeah, well, I got a dragon that can beat the hell out of the entire thing assembled, and like that was so cool
that's
to me.
True. I would say here's a question, and this is the last time I want to talk about Power Rangers for a very long time, but of the 5 original Power Rangers, which was your favorite?
I always liked the Red Ranger just because, like, I always like kind of gravitated in, like, on the hero side, I always gravitated towards kind of like the leaders. Like, I like Donatello a lot because of the NES game, to be honest, like because he had the longest reach. But Leonardo was my favorite growing up. Now I'm more of a Raphael guy. I've never gone through a Michelangelo phase, which is odd.
No,
because,
same.
But like, yeah,
not that I disliked him. I would say Donatello was actually always my last.
Like in Star Fox, I always played as Fox, like when we do multiplayer. Yeah. So it's like I always liked the leader characters. So like the Red Ranger was kind of always my favorite.
I liked the Black Ranger best because he had the Mastodon. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and he always started like the Morphin time.
Did he?
It was always Mastodon.
I blocked that out.
But yeah, the Black Ranger was always my second favorite, I think.
Okay.
But of the
also,
OGs,
I think Black was probably, of the colors, that was the one I probably liked the best as well. So again, everything's kind of color based. We were children. We don't know anything.
I mean, hey, Blue was my favorite, and he was probably Blue was my favorite color, and I think he was maybe my least favorite of the original 5 Power Rangers.
Oh, I don't know. Was he the nerdy one with the glasses?
Yeah.
Yeah, he sucked. But they all sucked, to be fair.
Poor Billy. But anyway,
that's all I've been playing for the last couple of weeks. What about you? Are you playing any of your new games, or are you kind of catching up on some old ones?
I'm kind of catching up on some games that So I had a hell of a run. I don't know if I talked about it on this podcast, but I've talked about it on other podcasts where I have been so busy playing other things for work. So my October.
I mean, we can infer that, I think, because you keep shouting out, "Oh, there's a game I can't talk about," and then the next week talk about it. So yeah, I can infer that. But
think about this. From early October, I was all right. I learned I was going to be going to Japan for this cover story for Street Fighter 6. At the time, nobody knew it was Street Fighter 6, but I was all right. I'm going to Japan. I'm going to be Street Fighter 6. We're also writing about the 30th anniversary of the Street Fighter franchise. So I started doing research for a history of the Street Fighter franchise, right? And did interviews and everything for that. So I wrote that. That was the first half of the cover story. Then I traveled to Japan.
This cover story?
That cover story.
As I hold up the Game Informer magazine.
Hey, twins. I got one too.
There you go.
But anyway, so I wrote that. Then I actually travel to Japan. Then I come back, write the story, the cover story itself. Then 2 days pass, and I get code for Sonic Frontiers. So I'm playing that day and night to get through it for embargo. Then I think I have like maybe a half week, and then Pokemon review code comes in. So again, another large open world game, playing that day and night. And then I maybe have a week, and then I start reviewing Need for Speed Unbound. And it's like I've just gone from game to game to game. And Need for Speed Unbound was first week of December. So it's not like I've had like from early October all the way to basically last week, I have been sprinting on review games or cover stories and other stuff. So it's like and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I have a lot of games to catch up on because, as you may be aware, a lot of games come out in the October, November, December timeframe.
Yes, it does. And you know, I was thinking, I just want to interject to a second, because this was something that I was thinking about recently, is the fact that like games right now, obviously you're talking about all these games, you have to sink in like not just several hours, but like, you know, dozens of hours into these games to be able to review them. But like, if you go back and you look at all the games that were in, like, you know, let's say Game Pro or even Game Informer, like in its earlier days, like back when my first Game Informer subscription was, I think, started in like 1997 or something like that.
We've been around since 91.
I want to say, oh wow. Yeah. Okay. I think the cover of the first one I have is actually, it's Lara Croft in a wetsuit.
Yep.
So I want to say it was number issue 60. We'll just pretend it was issue 60.
Because it used to be quarterly, and then it became monthly.
Yeah. But like back then, like to finish a game was like 3 hours, and then like if you go all the way back to like NES and Super NES, it was like, I don't know. Some of them were only a half hour long.
Yeah, you know? Some of them were long. Like the original Legend of Zelda was pretty long.
Sure. But they were fewer and far between.
Yeah. Nowadays, like, you know, beating a Sonic game back in like the 90s was a few hours at most. Yeah, now, you know, Sonic Frontiers was my most played game on PlayStation 4. Or PlayStation 5. I did my PlayStation like year in review.
Yeah, me too.
And Sonic Frontiers was my most played game because I reviewed it, and it was like just over 30 hours. And it's like, yeah, that checks out because that's what my in-game timer said 33 hours. So it makes sense.
And I sunk in way more time than you on the games that I chose to, because I had the ability to. I wasn't obligated to go to other games like you were. And when I did mine, it was actually the original God of War that had the most time.
Yeah.
I think I put like 86 hours into it or something like that, because I played it twice through this year. Don't forget. I did that. And I also, don't forget, I was also beating my head against the wall trying to beat like Sigrun and some of these other Valkyries. So I sunk hours and hours into, I would wager that I played against Sigrun alone for somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. I'm not even joking. It was probably somewhere along there over the course of like a week.
I think that's about as much time as I've put into God of War Ragnarok to date, which is unfortunate. So here's the thing, though. Like, all of my most played Switch games, my top 3 most played Switch games, I did my Nintendo year in review as well. Mm-hmm. They're all games I reviewed. So Pokemon Violet, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and Splatoon 3. All 3 games are games that I reviewed. So it's like a lot of my most played time this year has been devoted, especially the second half of this year, has been devoted to review games.
I looked at almost 30% of my gaming time this year was either original God of War for PS4 or God of War Ragnarok.
Good God.
I love those games, man. That's how I spend my time.
So those are the 2 games that I really want to get caught up on now that I have gotten to this point in my life or my year where I don't have a review game on my plate. That may change because I may end up reviewing another game that that I'm hearing might get shadow dropped before the end of this year, but we'll see.
I'm rooting against that for you. I'm sure you'll have a good time with it. And like, I'm not rooting against whoever's publishing said game. I don't know, but I would say I'm just rooting for you to get to do whatever it is you want to do.
Yes. So the God of War Ragnarok is obviously one that I want to get caught up on.
I can't wait to talk about it with you.
However, it has kind of fallen by the wayside. But the 2 games I'm currently playing, one of which is another game that I've been saying like, all right, I really need to devote time to this. I feel like it would be like a top 5 game for me of 2022 based on what I've played so far. I've played about, I guess 8 hours total now because I started it on PC because that's what advanced copies were available. And then I was like, I want to play this on Xbox. So I got it on Xbox. So I've just been kind of getting to the point that I was on PC, which was about 4 hours deep.
It's a shame you can't cross save or something like that with these games. They should do that more.
Marvel's Midnight Suns. Mm-hmm. Basically, the game from the XCOM developer starring Marvel heroes. And
we talked about it on the show.
So I'm enjoying it a lot. I've been playing that. I'm just past where I was on PC when we talked about it the first time, and I'm still really liking it. I think there's some stuff that like I don't love about it, but overall, it's one of my favorite games of the year. I'm excited to play more of it. And then the game that I have become completely hooked on is Vampire Survivors. Have you heard of this game?
No. This is literally the first time I've heard it.
It is a super cheap game, and it's taken over a lot of people's lives, basically. It is a single...
What platform is this?
It's on Xbox and PC.
Okay.
It is a single stick game.
Okay.
It's basically a bullet hell game.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like bullet hell.
Your character goes around in this open area, and it's like a pixelated, like, SNES graphics, basically. And you just move your stick around and your character auto attacks. You start off with one attack, right? So it's like you can choose, all right, do you want the guy that has like a whip that like he just whips like at a rhythm, basically. And as he's whipping, he'll take out any enemy in front of him. And then every time you defeat a certain number of enemies, they drop these gems. The gems let you level up. And every time you level up, you get to choose a new attack. So it's like, all right, do you want to upgrade your whip, or do you want to make it so now you have a projectile that goes out and like, all right, this one's a knife. It just goes in the direction that you're facing. Or this one is a magic wand that shoots this attack at the nearest enemy. And then you can choose whether you want to upgrade an existing attack or get a new attack. So like, as you keep going, obviously more enemies keep coming on screen, and you can level up more and more, and like the waves get thicker and thicker. And it's just so it is the ultimate, all right, I'll just do one more run. I'll do one more run. And it, like, if you start this game at like 10 p.m., you're probably going to be playing until 2 a.m. Like, that's how it is.
Yeah, it's one of those.
And it's one of my favorite games of the year. Like, it legitimately, like, let me bring up I'm not going to give away like the full list, because I think we're going to talk about this next week. Like,
sure. Sounds good.
Our games of the year. But like, it's currently number 8 on my list, ahead of Splatoon 3 and Sonic Frontiers, just behind Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Okay.
So like I'm loving it. And it might climb higher by the time I play more of it, because I've only done like maybe like 10, 12 runs total, and like I make it about 10 to 13 minutes each run. Like 30 minutes is the goal to make it on each run. And I've not made it to that point. That's like kind of like the victory state that you reach.
Okay.
But like basically as you keep upgrading, if you're smart about it, you become just an unstoppable killing machine. I haven't found the right like kind of balance of what to do with like how to stay alive for that long, but I'm getting better at it. And it's a really good podcast game too, because like it's just music that you're hearing as you're playing. It's
okay.
But just the simple controls of like using one stick, that's all it is. You're not like having to hit any buttons to like time your stuff. There's no strategy of like, all right, I got to save this for like when all these guys come around. Like, no, you're just constantly attacking automatically. You just have to position yourself in a place to, and like choose your upgrades wisely. And it's only like $5. It's like $4. And pretty much any PC could handle it. So Scott, I highly recommend you check it out if you have the time. Like it would be great to talk to you about it. And I think you'd like it a lot.
It honestly does. Like it's not that it doesn't sound like a game that I would enjoy playing, but the fact that you're telling me it can suck that much time out of my time, I'm like, oh man, because there's other things that I want to make sure I get done and play. And I'll tell you one thing, because I'm curious too at what you would say about this, but for the rest of like the calendar year, I'm trying to weigh like how I'd spend my time gaming wise. And, like I said, I'm playing Star Wars Skywalker Saga Lego, but I don't know that that's the one that's going to like dominate my time. It's more like I'll like dip in and dip out. But what I'm thinking of doing is something we talked about a few months ago. And I said, I'll wait until after God of War Ragnarok. I'm thinking very seriously now about activating an Xbox Game Pass that I play through my PC.
Well, Scott, you will be pleased to learn that Vampire Survivors is on Xbox Game Pass.
Ooh, okay, then that means I can check it out. That's wonderful. Well, okay.
Maybe it's Super. I know it's on Game Pass for Xbox.
So that's the other thing too. I don't know that I would like go and buy it from my PC, because I just don't sit in front of my PC and play enough games. But if you're telling me it's in front of, grouped in with all of these other games I'm going to play on my PC, different story.
God, it is on PC Game Pass. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what I was saying. PC Game Pass, right? That's right. It's not Xbox Game Pass.
So it's $5, and then they also released a DLC that adds like 8 new characters and like a bigger area and a bunch of new power-ups and weapons and everything. You know how much the expansion is for this $5 game? $2.
I was gonna say $30.
Honestly, I'd probably pay it. Like I don't want to give the developers any ideas. I don't like. I'm loving having to like pay like $2 for these massive updates. But like it's a really good game, and like again, it takes like 10 minutes if you want to do like one run, unless like you get really good at it, in which case it'll take up to 30 minutes. But
sure,
like check it out. Maybe you'll like that's what I was doing. I was just like, all right, yeah, I know like maximum one run is going to take me 30 minutes. I'm going to sit down and see what all the hype is about. Because Game Informer, we got a freelancer to review it for us. He gave it a 9.75 out of 10. And I was
did you guys think, why are we paying this freelancer to give out 9.75s? Get out of here.
Well, I knew that it had like a cult following and a lot of people really enjoyed it. So I was like, oh, we should review this game. And we didn't review it when it came out on PC. It's been on early access for a while, and it just did like its 1.0 release. And then when it came to Xbox, we were like, all right, that's our excuse to review it.
Sure.
Let's get a freelancer. And I did get somebody who I knew had played a lot of it on PC. And I'm like, hey, will you review the Xbox version for us? And he ended up reviewing like kind of both of them. And when he gave it a 9.75, and it's somebody that used to work at Game Informer that we got on there. Sure. So like I trusted him and everything for that.
I'm kidding. I don't even know who the individual is.
So when he got that, I was like, oh my God, like I knew he liked it, but he's like saying like, this is like one of the best games of the year easily. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll check it out. And then it came to Game Pass. I'm like, well, now I have no excuse not to. And it's going to take me 10 minutes. If I don't like it, I don't have to do it. And then as soon as I started playing it, I'm like, okay, I see this. And then like once I started getting upgrades, I'm like, oh, okay. Now I get it.
This is what we're talking about. I'm with you now. I understand the 9.75.
So I'm still not at, like, if I was reviewing it, I still am not at a 9.75, but I haven't played it nearly. I mean, this guy has sunk, I think he sunk 40 hours into it.
Sure.
Between the two platforms. So yeah, like I get it now. Like I understand like the cult following. But that's what I've been playing. I do want to play God of War Ragnarok. That's one of my goals for the holiday
I hope you get there.
Season.
God, we got to talk about this game. There's things that happen in the game I just want to talk to you about, sir.
But there's other games that I do need to play more of. I honestly, before the end of the year, I want to give Elden Ring another shot, because everybody is talking about how great this game is. And I get it. I understand, like, it's not a game that is gonna really appeal to me. However, I want to give it another fair shake because I was enjoying it, and then I got into an area that I kept dying, and then I went long enough without playing it, and I forgot how to play like well.
Yeah, no, that's the way with those especially the From Software games.
So I want to give it another shot before we finalize our editor top 10 list, because we all have individual top 10 lists in our like kind of end of year extravaganza issue, and I want to make sure that I give it a fair shake before I really like kind of close that out. So I'm going to try to do that as well. But like God of War and Midnight Suns are the two that I really want to put through the paces. I mean, God of War, with what little I've played, is my favorite game of 2022. I just want to play more of it.
Obviously, I don't think this is going to give anything away, but yeah, that's going to be my favorite game of 2022 as well.
Yeah, but we'll talk more about that next episode.
Sure. No, I know we obviously we were just talking about Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass, PlayStation Plus. They just put out the other day too their kind of additions to their catalog. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, we're not going to run down the list of everything, but I wanted to ask you a couple of pointed questions with relation to the list of games here. Okay. So, because I know you know the series very well. Mm-hmm. 3 of the games are Far Cry games. There's number 5, there's New Dawn, and there's Primal. I have played 5. I have played New Dawn. I have not played Primal. Which of the 3 of those do you think is like the best of them?
Oh man, they're all so different. So Far Cry 5, you've played it. It's kind of like one of the, I mean, none of the Far Cry games really take themselves too seriously, but it's the most serious out of those 3.
I was gonna say, there's definitely some, it's a cult going on there, right? Yeah.
But like, there's always going to be like, hey, I'm hang gliding, and now I'm dropping down and air assassinating a bear, and
there's some goofy characters around. Yeah,
there's always like goofy stuff. Far Cry New Dawn is a post-apocalyptic setting where it's like it takes place after Far Cry 5, and like you have like a gun that shoots chainsaws, so it's less serious
and more or less the same world too.
Yeah, it's the same world. They use the same map. It's just now it's post-apocalyptic, and then Far Cry Primal takes place in like prehistoric era where like you're fighting saber-toothed tigers. You're like, there's no guns. You have like spears that you're throwing. So it's like a very different experience.
I was always fascinated by that too, because I do love like the prehistoric times.
I liked it a lot more than a lot of people did, I think. I think a lot of people have soured on the Far Cry series, but I still am a fan of the Far Cry series.
I know you are, yeah.
I think Primal is fun, but go in expecting kind of a much different experience. And also, it's one of those, I don't want to make it sound like I'm play everything on easy guy, but some of those bosses in Far Cry Primal are total garbage. Like the game itself I love it. There's a couple boss fights in that game that it's just like, oh my God, like this is just frustration for the sake of frustration.
Yeah. See, I've told you, understand that when I tell you I beat Sigrun on New Game Plus on the hardest difficulty, having played her for like 4 to 6 hours or more, I don't mind a challenge. I'm up for it. I'm into it and all that kind of thing. But I also sometimes, number one, I want to play it through and just have a good breezy time. I'm very okay with that. And number 2, yeah, sometimes the difficulty is difficulty for difficulty's sake rather than like actually making it a challenge. It's just like, well, we're gonna crank up the annoying factor on you, and it's like that. It's not fun. That's not even fun for people like a challenge.
I'll give you 2 caveats to this. First, I don't know if they've patched it post-release, right? Maybe they made these bosses easier. 2, they're not impossible. I beat them, maybe I spent like an hour or something on each one, and like just to get through it. It's I mean, maybe even less. I don't know. It's been like several years since I played it. What was it, 2016?
It's not a new game. It's been out a while.
So it was a few attempts of each boss, and I was able to beat it on normal, which what I would recommend you play this game on. So it's not like it's impossible. It's not Sigrun difficult.
Sure, I don't expect that.
It's just several attempts it took me to beat these bosses, and I was just like, all right, I'm glad I beat that. Never have to fight that character again. Moving on, let's get back to the fun. The same like explorative elements that exist in all Far Cry games exist in Primal, and I like the kind of the hunter-gatherer element of it is kind of dialed up a little bit in Primal, and I love the setting. I love the story. I think it's a really good game, and I think you should check it out if you are a Far Cry fan.
I am debating that. If I don't end up sinking time into the Xbox or PC Game Pass, I think that was one that kind of did jump out at me. But there's other games that I was thinking about as well.
What about Yakuza? What about Yakuza Like a Dragon?
I'm just not interested in the Yakuza series. I don't know why. It sounds like a formidable task to like jump in and then be like, well, now maybe I want to play all the games. There's like a billion of them now. Well, I don't know if I'll catch up.
The thing about Like a Dragon is, one, it's kind of like a soft restart for the series. Like, it's the first. So Yakuza 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all star the same character, right? Same storyline. 6 was the end of Kiryu's saga, basically. Like, so I see Yakuza 6 Song of Life is on this.
That's one of the ones that got added, yeah.
That is the final game of Kiryu's story, of his like story arc. Yakuza Like a Dragon starts a new character's story arc. It's in the same area, same world, same city and everything, but it's a new character, new gameplay elements. Instead of being like a third-person action game, it's a turn-based RPG. But modernized, and basically because like he's like obsessed with the Dragon Quest series, and he kind of sees himself as the hero of the story. Like, he's a huge dork, right? Like, but in a good, very endearing way. He's
obsessed with a real video game.
He's obsessed with Dragon Quest.
That's quite meta.
And so he sees, and when he gets into these fights, he sees them in his mind playing out like a turn-based RPG battle. Okay. He's a very, very good character. Ichiban Kasuga is his name.
Okay.
And he is such like a good-hearted character. I think he won both in this year that came out. So we do lists of like, here are the biggest dorks of the year. Here are the best characters of the year.
Game Informer always does that stuff.
And we gave him both best character and biggest dork, which has never happened before, I think.
Interesting.
So he's great. He's an amazing character, and like it's a new story arc, right? So it's a good jumping on point. And if you like this game enough, yes, you can go back and play Yakuza 0, which is the one I would recommend starting with. It not only is it the prequel to the entire series, but I think it's probably the best of the classic Yakuza games.
Okay.
But also, the gameplay mechanics are so different that like you'd be like, all right, well, just because I like a Dragon, I'm not necessarily tempted to go, unless you just really love the story and like the world of this version of Japan, you know, because you don't have it. You can rest assured it's a different character's story arc, and it's a different gameplay style that you might not necessarily be tempted to go back after playing Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a good sell. I mean, I get it. I don't know, man. It's just a series that never really piqued my interest. I'll tell you one thing, though. The two of the games on here are games that I already have, and I never actually really played a whole lot of it all, are the Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War games. Did you ever play those?
I love those games.
So would you recommend, like, today, like me going back and kind of playing? Because I know that people compare them, at least in terms of the type of gameplay, to like the Arkham games in a lot of ways. I should preface, I'm not a Lord of the Rings guy, but I'm not closing myself off to the idea of playing the game. But you really like them anyway.
I love them. I think Shadow of Mordor is a more focused experience. Think of it almost like Shadow of Mordor is like the Arkham Asylum of the series, and Shadow of War is almost like the Arkham City of the series. Or maybe it's more Arkham Knight is like the better analog, because like maybe they try some things that don't necessarily work, but as a whole, it's still a very good game. And Shadow of War got a lot of negative press because they had all these microtransactions at launch. They went back and patched all of them out. They no longer have the microtransactions. The developer went in and got rid of all of them in a post-release update. I played them with the microtransactions, and I still thought it was one of the best games of that year.
So Shadow of War is the one that I played, like, I don't know, like a couple hours of. I guess I didn't really get to sink deep into that one. I never even played Shadow of Mordor, so I feel like maybe I owe it to myself to like go back and play Mordor first, because it sounds like you're the more focused experience probably sounds like a better at least entry point into the series than here's a billion things thrown at you. Because I did think it was a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a big open world game, right? Like, it's still like
and I'm okay with that.
But like Shadow of War does add a lot of elements, and I think that it's maybe a better overall game in terms of like the combat feels better, and like the Nemesis system, which is like a system I would love to see implemented in a future Arkham game if they ever do another Batman Arkham game, because basically the way it works is a character like like say you get killed by an NPC, right? And or just a minion character, they get a promotion, and then they become a named character that like will recognize you down the line. So like if you go down there and like you enter a battle and that character happens to be nearby, like he will recognize you, be like, oh, remember last time we fought? It didn't end so well for you. And like, he'll actually taunt you and recall things. And he actually is more powerful this time because he got better weapons from being like the guy who like took you down. So and they kind of raise up the ranks. That would be so cool for a Batman game to be like, go ahead.
Can I tell you an idea that popped in my head as you were explaining this and comparing it to the Batman series? It's kind of a twist on the idea of this. Rather than it be someone who beat you, if you're Batman, you're not losing to guys, really. You're not really supposed to lose to the minions, right? So let's say it's somebody who, like, one of the henchmen that you fought, they have a backstory that you don't really know about. And then they come find you or something, and you actually learn more about their backstory. And they're more upgraded. They have more things they can do, just like you're describing, but they're motivated by what you did to them rather than vice versa.
Yeah. I mean, also that makes sense because in Shadow of War, you are killing these fools. You're destroying these orcs, like you're cutting off their heads. I mean, Batman's not killing anybody, so it would make sense that it would go the other way around. But still, like, it's cool. Like if like somebody gets the best of you, that they come back and they are able to like kind of throw that in your face, and it's like, I remember that guy, and it creates some really amazing emergent stories.
I do think that was kind of cool when I did, like I said, I played a little bit of that. The one last thing is I wanted to ask you about with the PlayStation Plus thing. I mean, there's a couple of other topics gaming wise we have before we move to fighting and then close out. But the classics here, there's 4 classics: Ridge Racer 2, Heavenly Sword, Oddworld, Abe's Exodus, and Pinball Heroes. I wanted to ask you specifically about Heavenly Sword. Did you ever play it?
I didn't play any of these games.
You didn't play it? Okay. Because I had heard, I played the demo of Heavenly Sword way back. That was like one of the first things that I played on my PS3. It was like in demo form at that point. And I played through it. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. That was fine. But I was going to ask you specifically if you had played that one and if that was something you thought I should check out.
I don't have anything to say about it. Sorry.
That's all right. No problem. We can move on from that because, again, there's a few little gaming things that I saw around. I know you saw some things as well. I would kick it to you, actually. What do you want to mention first?
Marvel Spider-Man 2, fall 2023. 2023 is looking real good. I mean, obviously, there's the chance that what happened to 2022 will happen to 2023, and a lot of stuff gets pushed.
I always believe these games are like, we'll see when it comes, but I do trust Sony typically because when they put a date on it, they're typically like, okay, we're actually going to hit it.
And also, I would be very surprised if some of the other games that are slotted for early 2023 or like first half of 2023, like, I mean, we talked about this last week, right? Where it's like, here's just the onslaught of games that are coming in. Like,
yeah, we hit all those.
I would be surprised if those do slide, if they slid far enough out that they would completely lose 2023. Like,
yeah,
like,
I would too.
It would take something catastrophic for something like Street Fighter 6 or like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom to slide out 6 months or more. You know, like, that would be a huge deal after they got their release dates and everything.
Once they put like a real date on it, they tend to stick to it these days. I think they've gotten better with that. It's when they're like, oh, we're aiming for fourth quarter 2022 or we're aiming for spring this time. It's like, well, maybe it'll be spring next year.
So Spider-Man 2 is a game, like, 2018 was one of, or 2018 was one of the greatest years of the decade for gaming. We got God of War, we got Red Dead Redemption 2, and we got Spider-Man. Spider-Man might have been my favorite of the bunch. That's how much I love that first Insomniac Spider-Man game. And so to say, and like, I love Miles Morales. I think that was one of the better games that came out that year as well. So to say I'm excited for Marvel Spider-Man 2, especially given that like the characters that were promised in that, the storylines, the story threads that are going to pick up on that, like, I could not be more excited to play. Like, I'm obviously Tears of the Kingdom. It's the sequel to my favorite game of all time, Breath of the Wild.
You're going to be predisposed to Zelda anyway.
I am over the moon for Tears of the Kingdom, but Spider-Man 2 is pretty damn close to that. Like, that's how thrilled I am to play Spider-Man 2. So that's what I'm excited for that. We're getting Venom. We're getting Kraven the Hunter. Apparently, we're probably going to get some follow-ups to that Norman Osborn storyline that was kind of kicked around at the end of Spider-Man.
I would think so.
Oh man, I cannot wait to see where we go from here. How do you, like, they kicked off this franchise with the Sinister Six. How do you even one up that? And the answer is You bring Venom, you bring Kraven, maybe some more personal storylines for Peter, and we're eating good, I think is a good way to say it. And also worth noting, if you ever play Marvel's Midnight Suns, Spider-Man is in that, and he's voiced by the same voice actor that they have in Insomniac Spider-Man, Yuri Lowenthal.
Right on.
So you hear the familiar voice, and you're like, oh man, I miss swinging around New York as that guy. But also, we have some news that there's a new Tomb Raider game coming, and Crystal Dynamics.
We knew about the game.
Yeah, but Amazon Games is publishing it, which is
that was what surprised me.
Yeah, I got a wind of this ahead of time, and I was like, all right, Amazon Games, they haven't really made any like major waves. They put out some games that people like. They haven't made any major waves. And then I found out that it was a Tomb Raider game, and I was like, oh, that's big.
Sure. And
so like I was I'm impressed. I think that it's smart for Amazon to work with established developers in this way, and especially established IP that a lot of people really love. And this could be kind of an entry point for them, because they've tried to develop their own games to varying results, and this is kind of a nice attempt for them. Obviously, they have the money to do it. Like Amazon has basically infinite funds. Yeah, that's what I hear. I hear
that's not. That is where like half of my monthly expenses seem to go. Yeah,
exactly.
Now that you mention it.
So it's good to see that. I mean, it's the same reason that Xbox is able to like buy all these studios, and it's because they happen to be owned by one of the most successful companies on the planet. Mm-hmm. And it's why it's the one up that they will always have over Sony. Sony's a major corporation, right?
Sure.
But it's going to be hard for any company to match the spending power of Microsoft.
If they so choose to, yeah. I mean, and they are, obviously. They're exercising
Microsoft has been flexing that in the past few years, right?
Yeah.
So the last thing I think we should touch on, because we do have to move on to fights. We had the final UFC card of the year, but you talked about God of War. There's a God of War series, speaking of Amazon, ordered at Amazon Prime, and Cory Barlog is going to executive produce.
I'm super.
Who should play Kratos?
This
is the one question I'm going to ask you. Who should play Kratos?
I haven't given it enough thought. I'll be honest, I'm not really in favor of the push to get Christopher Judge to play him. And it's not that I dislike Christopher Judge. I would like a different interpretation. I want someone else to give it a try.
However, it would be that voice just carrying over would just be incredible.
I know. But you know what? I was used to a different voice. Christopher Judge didn't always voice Kratos either. So for me, it's okay for it to be a different person, God, I'm very okay with that.
That voice is so good, though.
No, it's terrific. He's definitely...
And he's a big guy. He's seemingly in pretty good shape. Just give him like a few months to get super ripped. I don't know. I mean, I've never seen him without a shirt, so maybe he's already super ripped. Like I said, he's a big guy already.
I wouldn't say I'm mad. I'd be mad or anything like that if he was it. I'd be like, okay, that's an interesting way to go. You turn a voice actor into an actual actor. That's like basically unprecedented in this type of thing.
But that's not what we did with the Last of Us series. Like, we have the different actors playing Joel and Ellie.
And they did the fun little thing at the Game Awards. Yeah.
Pedro Pascal obviously playing Joel, which is very exciting. And then you had the girl from Game of Thrones coming over to play Ellie. I forget her name. I forget her name, but she's a very good actress as well.
I also forget her name as well, but yes, she was Lady Mormont.
Yes, and so there's not. I mean, I'd be very surprised if we got Christopher Judge playing Kratos. To be quite honest, I just wouldn't.
Sure, it's a fan push. That's not the casting department. They're probably going to be like, yeah, that's nice. We're going to do something else.
PlayStation is making a push. We got the Uncharted movie starring Tom Holland.
Sure.
We got a Last of Us series coming out on HBO Max or whatever the hell it's going to be called by the time January rolls around. And now we're going to have a God of War series. And there's also, wasn't there something about a Horizon something or other happening as well?
I could have swore I remember something to that effect as well. Yeah.
But like it's PlayStation Studios, like I remember when I went and saw an advanced screening of the Uncharted movie because I wrote the review for it, interviewed Tom Holland and everything. That was a super cool experience. When I went to it, they played like almost like Marvel. When you go see an MCU movie, they have like the sizzle reel at the beginning of like the title card of all the Marvel heroes kind of coming out.
I just saw Wakanda Forever, by the way, and that one when that one hit, like it definitely affected me.
That was one of 2 times that I teared up during that movie. The second one's very obvious of when you would tear up on the second time.
The funny thing is because and this isn't funny, but like when I'm watching the movie and I think, can we talk about the first 5 minutes and say like this is a little spoilery, but like it's not. It's just the first 5 minutes. Yeah. Obviously Shuri is trying to desperately find a cure for this illness, this mysterious illness that her brother has, and isn't able to find it, unfortunately. And there's the funeral and everything like that. And I'm watching this, and in the moment, I'm like, why am I not getting upset about this at all? Like, I'm not even like affected, and it's very weird. I'm feeling like not affected in any way, and I don't know why. And all of a sudden, the sizzle reel comes up we're talking about with the Marvel logo, and you see Chadwick, and I'm like, I was just like, I got choked up like immediately. I was like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I just need to see the man.
Yeah, dude, just thinking about it now, I'm getting a little choked up because that movie was so emotional. And then like, actually, I'm going to count. No, there were 3 times I teared up. You'll know the third one for sure. We don't have to spoil deep into that, and we do want to move on. There is a third time, but yeah, let's move on. But anyway, what I was getting at with there was PlayStation has their own kind of like sizzle reel, like at the beginning of their movies.
I like
title
theirs,
card.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're definitely going to be doing more of that. And that was my first indication that they were going to be like, oh, they're going to be making a push into like kind of like movies and everything.
Same. Yeah. That definitely hit me when I was watching Uncharted, the film as well. But
we've talked an hour 15 about World Cup and sports and Twitter and gaming. Let's talk about some fights before we wrap up here. It wasn't, and it is
a little bit afterthoughty in a sense, because this is the way that the UFC structures their calendar. They put a pay-per-view on at the end of the year, and then they do one more fight night, but it's not really like an in-demand fight night either. It's like, it's a very soft close to the year. I don't know why they do it this way. They should build up to what in theory would be at least an end of the year, like boom, and then you move on.
Well, they used to.
Yeah, that's true. But like also they used to do that New Year's Eve kind of thing. So now they actually built in like a month to go away, but it's also, again, it's softer, and I don't know why they do this, but nonetheless, we go into the break off of Jarrett Cannonier against Sean Strickland, a fight that included all 5 rounds being split among the judges. In fact, they were dueling 49-46 cards. One judge saw every round one way, and the other judge saw every round the opposite of that judge. It was a very weird kind of thing, but also, I don't know how you feel about this. A lot of people, and I understand judging a lot better than most people, and that actually made sense to me. But a lot of people seem to be like, yeah, I guess I get it. It was a really close fight, and all the rounds were close, and that's really what it was to me. Did you see that as well?
I saw a lot of people saying that, but I did not watch a single second of this fight.
So you don't even know what we're talking about. What do you even talk about fighting anymore for?
Dude, like, yeah, this card, we talked about how there were some good fights on here. I was like, yeah, if I don't have anything else going on. I had an extremely busy weekend, so I ended up not having any time to watch.
Couldn't even go to that Viking game.
I didn't even go to the Viking game, but like, I saw that my boy Matthew Semmelsberger had a huge win over Jake Matthews.
Oh, he looked really good. Yeah, and Jake Matthews, I have a high opinion of him too. So he looked really impressive about Jake. I guess he knocked him down in every round. I mean, that's impressive.
So
you don't see that a lot.
I went to school with his sister, high school with his sister, and then
I think maybe you've mentioned that before.
Yeah. And, I think he would have gone to school with me, but they redistricted, and he went to the high school with my brother, basically, because my brother went to a different high school from me, even though my parents didn't move. They redistricted. So I went to school with his sister. He went to school with my brother. And so, but still fighting out of my hometown, basically, Frederick, Maryland. And so I'm always like kind of keeping tabs on him, and I always watch his fights whenever I can. But yeah, there's a lot of fights on here that I do want to go back and watch. Like
You want me to like kind of highlight the ones you should watch?
Well, I know that Drew Dober and Bobby Green I should absolutely watch because
you have to watch that one. I would say watch any of the first round finishes because they're worth it.
Yeah.
Definitely watch Said Nurmagomedov and Said Yakub Kakramanov.
The Saids, the battle of the Saids.
Everyone with a Said in their name, correct? Because that's what I say, Said to you.
Thank
terrible.
You for tuning into this episode of the Ground and Pound podcast.
This is the end of the show. I just killed it.
But yeah, so like, yeah,
watch those fights. I would say definitely watch Arman Tsarukyan versus Demiraz Magulov. Not that necessarily it was like an amazing fight, but I think it was an interesting tactical battle. And it's with 2 guys that probably are going to be hanging around at the lightweight division for quite a while.
Arman Tsarukyan.
Like the 30-27 all across the board for Tsarukyan. I don't know that necessarily tells you the story of the fight. To a degree it does, but Ismagulov showed a lot to be impressed with in this fight. And I think someone like you, I think you'd appreciate it.
Am I to believe that Manel Kopp and David Dvorak went to a decision? Because I saw some pictures on social media. I could have swore David Dvorak's arm was broken.
You should watch that fight because of Manel Kopp really standing. Like, he didn't get a performance of the night bonus, but like, you want to talk about guys who just like completely outclassed their opponents. That was Manel Kopp. And to a similar degree, Renat Fakhretdinov did the same thing against Brian Battle. This was also on the prelims, but I would say you're going to have more fun watching Manel Kopp than Fakhretdinov. Fakhretdinov, it felt like a kind of like a Khabib type of fight where he just like takes him down and he's like crushing him. And then he also knocks him down, I believe, in the third round. So it's an impressive performance, but not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing one if you can pick and choose what to watch.
And I saw, Caceres just apparently looked great.
Alex Caceres, I would say it's not like the most engaging fight. It's fine, but then all of a sudden the knockout is very impressive.
Yeah,
so technically it was a TKO, but
I'll watch some of these before we have our end of the year episode because, it doesn't sound like any of these are like going to be contenders for fight of the year or knockout of the year, especially when you have some of the strong contenders that we've had for both of those categories this year.
No, I don't think any of them broke into. I would say Drew Dober's win was probably the most impressive, though. You got to see the way he bodies Bobby Green here.
Yeah, every time I see Maheshate, every time I see his name, I think it's a misspelling of Misha Tate. I'm
always reading his name wrong, but dude, did you see what happened to Rafa Garcia who beat Maheshate? He lost what he says he was told 20% of his blood because an artery on his head was nicked.
Well,
and
Cub
it took
Swanson.
Cub Swanson was saying that it took 2 hours for the cut to close and for them to stop the bleeding. There was like a little conversation both on social media and I think during the fight as well about, what kind of damage is that? Because it's off to the side of his head. I think Dominic Cruz was saying, because that's damage. Dominic never seems to understand the criteria. Mm. He's got the never-ending battle with understanding it, and he's always losing. And he doesn't know it. But I will say, he pointed out, this cut on his head, and it was just a leaking blood in a way that felt like you kind of like poked a hole in your milk bottle, and it was just coming out. And the fact that you were able to open up an artery and open up that much blood, that would be the kind of thing that, even though it's not in a spot that would traditionally be like a bother, like your eye or maybe you broken your nose and you're leaking out of there. I mean, the theory of fighting here is that if these two were to continue fighting forever, somebody would probably win because of the damage inflicted. If you break somebody's arm, you choke them out, you've won the fight. If you nick that artery and there's no one there to stop it, that man will die. So in theory, he did a pretty good job there, Maheshate, of opening up that cut. Having said that, he definitely was not winning that fight, and it was 30-27 for Garcia, and I don't think anyone's arguing the other way.
You're saying under Stockton rules,
rules, yes.
Maheshate would have won.
Under Stockton rules, Maheshate won. But he lost 30-27.
And it's one of those spots.
This is very much like a Stockton rules fight.
It's one of those spots where you wouldn't even be concerned. Like, it's almost like, when... not to bring the show down in like a kind of a sad way, but like I remember when Sean Taylor, was the former Washington football player.
Oh yeah,
somebody broke into his house and shot him. They shot him in the leg, and like my initial thought was like, oh, he died from that. Like what? But like he hit an artery in the leg. But like that's the same thing where it's like if somebody was bleeding out like the side of their head, as long as it wasn't like a deep cut that's going to like penetrate their skull or something, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's something you got to worry about. But like,
no one would think that. But yeah, I think we all learned a little bit about human anatomy and the way it works this weekend, and that was a fascinating and bloody and disgusting way to do that. But I would say, to kind of wrap up here, we always talk about how the main event fared up against your expectations. You have a no comment on that one. You're not allowed to comment on that one because you haven't watched it. But I would say for me, it basically met my expectations almost in full because it ended up being one of those fights that wasn't like terrible, but also was kind of forgettable in a billion ways. It was really, I would say each round was close. And in that sense, there's at least a little bit of drama there. but nobody, especially Sean Strickland, is like the most frustrating fighter because he'll talk just a monstrous game about like, oh, I want to murder somebody. I would love to kill somebody in the cage. That would just be wonderful. And he goes out there and he's like the most cautious fighter you ever saw. He waits patiently for opportunities, which is strategically very smart. But also, he is not going to create those opportunities. The entire fight, he's just waiting on Cannonier. And sometimes he's able to capitalize. And when he does, he's very quick with his hands. But man, he doesn't push for anything. There are a lot of decisions on this guy's card. If he is interested in murdering somebody, he isn't good enough to do that.
Yeah, I saw somebody...
Not with his hands and fists, anyway, not in a cage.
This was like maybe 2 fights ago. Whenever he had that... who did he fight before Alex Pereira?
That was Jack Hermanson. That was February.
I think I saw somebody on
Disney for that one
say like it would take 100 rounds for Sean Strickland to kill somebody in the cage.
I mean, as long as he got the cardio, yeah, he'd probably eventually be able to murder somebody in the cage. But yeah, that's Stockton rules.
Exactly.
We're still on Stockton rules here. Cannonier, I thought, landed the heavier blows when he did land better. But it was really close anyway. I'm happy that he got the win. That's how I scored it. And I think ultimately, like if you were, let's say Pride Rules style, pick one guy just based on the body of work, I want to say Cannonier was the better guy in there anyway. So, I think ultimately the right guy won. No one feels that strongly. And then we just come and move on. But yeah, I think he gave it like a 2.5 rating out of 5 stars on expectations. And I feel like it probably settled into 2.5, if not a 2. And I think I was also leaning, I think I did say, I was at a 2.5, but leaning closer to 2. Whereas for the rest of the card, I was more like a 3.5, leaning toward a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say I hit that. I think probably it settled into like a 3.5 range when it really comes down to it. But the main card was really fun. A lot of finishes on that main card. And again, there were even some standout performances on the prelims, but the prelims kind of dragged because 6 out of 7 fights went to a decision. And in many cases, they were quite lopsided. So there wasn't a whole lot of competitive balance, I guess, on the prelims.
Yeah, well, I will check out those fights that you recommended. There was one other thing that I wanted to touch on before we wrap up here very quickly.
What do you got?
I saw that, I think it was the NSAC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, said something about, because we had this Doug Crosby debacle with, giving the Danny Sabatello card at Bellator. We talked about it pretty at length last week. And then flying in and giving the Paddy Pimblett card that a lot of people disagreed with.
I know where you're going, I think, and it's actually California.
It was California. Okay, so CSAC. And they're saying that, we're prohibiting people from flying in and doing, multiple cards per weekend.
Back-to-back nights, yeah.
Yes.
The idea being, you would, if you want to work in California, that's fine. You can go as far as Nevada, the next night or the previous night. But, other than that, you're not going to be doing that for us anymore.
Is that really addressing anything? It just seems like it was bad judging. I can fly across the country and I'll be fine by the next night. It just seems like it was just because the really egregious card was the first one, which is the Danny Sabatello card. That had nothing to do with jet lag.
I would say I don't think it's. I think it's California trying to be proactive because number one, it wasn't their commission that this even happened under.
Yeah.
They did something based on what happened somewhere else, and they said, well, let's be prepared for if it happens again. This is a practice that does occasionally happen. You'll get a judge or a ref who will work South Dakota, and then they'll fly into California for the next day. It's infrequent, but it does happen where a judge or a ref will do that. And I think they've never liked it, and especially recently. It's something that I know they've frowned upon and kind of said hey, please don't do that anymore. And now they're just making it official. But yeah, I don't think that was exactly the problem in this case with Crosby. I think what happened with Doug Crosby is he revealed himself to have a completely different way of judging fights, and everyone else started talking. He finally got under the microscope for the first time in a while. That's what happens. There's a card that's a weird card, and then all of a sudden everyone's complaining about them. But usually it's just people saying, "Oh, Sal D'Amato, it's always Sal D'Amato." But that's the reason it's always Sal D'Amato is because he judges twice as many fights as literally anybody else. He just has a giant body of work. Yeah. You're going to hear his name more often. And that's really all it comes down to with him. I don't even think he's a bad judge in any way, to be perfectly honest with you. Doug Crosby, I've always thought to be a very odd, strange judge. And apparently he's also a odd, strange man, because all the dirty laundry got hung out this past week with relation to Doug Crosby. And when that happened, that certainly seems like some sort of nail in the coffin to go along with a completely inexcusable card. And the fact that people like me and other people are pointing out that when he talks about judging, he does it in a different way than any other judge does. So it doesn't really match the way modern judging works. He's been doing it 20 years and he just doesn't fit into the modern landscape of judging. Even if he can judge a fight, he's doing it the wrong way, and we can't really have that anymore. So maybe we won't see him again. Maybe we'll, who knows? It's kind of just one of those things you have to watch over the next couple months. People like me are watching, so we'll see.
Also, it's interesting that, kind of some of the fallout. This was another point from the co-main event podcast, but Dana White got called out by Ramzan Kadyrov pretty strongly. Yeah. It's interesting how Dana White doesn't go after Ramzan Kadyrov the way that, like, if a journalist had called him out like that.
Yeah.
What do you make of that, Scott?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. I don't want to go deep into that one, but
it's just interesting that Dana doesn't have the same strong words, doesn't call him a scumbag or anything.
To be fair, he doesn't answer everybody. I will say that for Dana. Sometimes he's not sitting out there answering everybody, but yeah, interesting.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
I think we're probably at the end of the road here. We packed a lot into this one. I mean, from social media to football to soccer, games, fighting. I think we did it all. So that is it for this one. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is you are listening. And while you're at it, would you kindly follow the social handles that we still have at Brian Pichet and at Scott_Fontana on Twitter and Instagram and a billion other places, but also in Brian's case, not always on Twitter and all that other stuff.
You know what still does have Twitter? The official Ground and Pwned Twitter, which is at Ground and Pwned. And then you can also find us in our inboxes, which is groundandpwnedpod@gmail.com. Until next time, enjoy the fights. I guess no fights, but enjoy the games. We'll talk to you next week.